Welcome back to some F1 Manager 22 on this channel. I know it has been a while, but we are back to finish off this second season of our career mode in the game. If you are unfamiliar with the series or you've forgotten where we were with this series, we're in Season 2. We've turned Alfa Romeo Sauber into Audi Sport, as they will be in 2026. We've got Pierre Gasly and Fernando Alonso as our driver pairing. I did address the lack of F1 Manager 22 content on the channel in a community post earlier in the week, but simply put, I got a bit bored of the game. But now, having taken a bit of a step back, I'm ready to finish off the season at least, because I feel bad about not at least finishing what we started with this current season. And we are locked into a battle, remember, with Scuderia Ferrari for P2 in the championship. They've got still Leclerc and Sainz. They've got a very quick car, and it's going to be a tough challenge, but I'm ready to take it all the way to the final race to hopefully try and beat them. At the moment, with where we left things off, we're 7 points behind Ferrari in P3 in the Constructors' Championship. Like I said, I mean, our car generally, I think, is a little bit slower. There are some certain tracks and characteristics that make our car better than Ferrari, and we've exploited those when we have done. And we have exploited those when we could do in the season so far. But now it's time to ramp things up, and we're going to really delve into all the R&D into this season. Because I read an interesting post on it was actually the F1 Manager Reddit recently about, you know, playing the game slow versus playing the game fast. And the person who made the post found that playing the game fast and just focusing on the races you're doing, the season you're doing, is actually better, because there's actually a bit of lack of really long-term building. You know, we've seen that with, you know, the driver potential's not really growing too quickly. You know, poor Chair, he's not really going to be ready to be in our team anytime soon. And to that effect as well, the actual effect of researching for next year's car isn't huge, because if you think about it, we were in P3 in the championship anyway in Season 1 fighting Mercedes, and we're still P3 now trying to bridge the gap to Ferrari, but Red Bull are still so miles clear, so it's really more Ferrari have dropped off. So I am going to be now playing this game a little bit differently for the remainder of the season, kind of doing all the R&D for this year's car, just trying to get this car as quick as possible to try and fight Ferrari, because it has been frustrating at times, kind of feel like we're kind of playing with one hand behind our back with how quick they are at some circuits. So I want to try and get this car as quick as possible to take the fight to them. Now, like we were doing with this series just before this little kind of sabbatical break, we are going to have 2 races in 1. So first up is going to be the Hungarian Grand Prix just before the summer break in the calendar. And Pierre Gasly, well, what a way to return to the series. Gets on pole position in Q3. Gasly and this car seems to work very well around Hungary. Fernando Alonso P6 behind both Red Bulls and Ferrari. So that's going to be a bit frustrating to try and catapult him up there, because we can definitely maybe beat Ferrari on pace when we're ahead, but you know, when they're chasing us down and the ERS starts draining and the tyre wear gets into play, it's difficult. But we do have a wet race coming up, because you can see I'm adjusting the strategy for 2 intermediate pit stops, because we've seen the weather radar. There is rain on the way later, so we can pre-plan for that. And wet races are great on this game, because AI do tend to make a few mistakes, and that's where we can get the advantage and actually have a go at them and play a bit clever with the strategy. So I'm hoping we can try and convert Gasly's pole position, you'd hope, to a race win, and then for Fernando Alonso, at least try and get ahead of one of the Ferraris to try and both outscore both of them respectively with either driver, basically. But now we're revving up to 5 red lights. F1 Manager 22 back on the channel. First race back in 2023. Lights out and away we go. And off pole position, Gasly gets a good exit there. A bit movement behind with Sergio Perez. Alonso actually loses a position to Valtteri Bottas, who actually is trying to gain 2 positions for 1 into turn 1. So a bit of a slow start for Alonso, but we are on the mediums with both Gasly and Alonso, because we want to get to that wet period, whereas a couple of cars around us, Leclerc and Bottas, I think that is, on the soft compound. So there will be a bit of initial maybe lack of speed in general grip, basically, but eventually those softs will wear away, and just like now, you're watching lap 5, Alonso making moves to try and get past Valtteri Bottas. You know, remember, one of our old drivers in this series. It always seems to pop up, and Bottas, well, very much, we all know now, Bottas is quite overpowered in this game for whatever reason, but Alonso gets ahead, P5. Gasly at this point, you can see, nearly a 3-second lead, so we have just blitzed him. And he's not even pushing that much now. He's now on, you know, pretty stable halfway house on the pushing, on the fuel, because we've got that gap, so he's just controlling that. And Alonso's the one pushing a bit more as we go for the fastest lap of the Grand Prix and looking to try and now maybe overtake these two scarlet red cars. So these two Ferraris fighting, that's good for us because, well, they're slowing each other down. Unfortunately, Verstappen's getting away, but ultimately, you know, Verstappen, he's leading the championship by so much. He's so bloody quick in this season with that Red Bull car. I don't think we'll be able to get Max with Alonso, so the hope is to try and get one of the Ferrari cars. Saying that, to be fair, Sainz has actually gone and overtaken Verstappen as we now overtake Leclerc, so maybe there is some hope to maybe get Verstappen. Actually, I stand corrected, but we get Leclerc. Crucial move there. At this stage, tyre wear level's pretty good actually for both drivers. We haven't actually had to over-push the drivers to actually maintain this kind of pace, you know, because before the problem has been pushing them so hard, but later into the race then, Carlos Sainz with a big error and slams into the wall. Hallelujah for us. Great stuff for us, because now we've got both Ferraris down the order because Sainz damaged his car and Leclerc has just made an early pit stop because he was on the soft compounder tyre. So both Ferraris have made an early pit stop. One of them was pre-planned, and for Sainz, he had to change his front wing. So excellent stuff for us then. Gasly still leads the way by 4.4 seconds. So there's a combination of our car, Gasly, something about Hungary. It's just actually quite easy to manage this right now with Pierre Gasly. Yeah, right. With Alonso, we're having to kind of fight a bit more as we're now got Sergio Perez for company. He wasn't really anywhere near us, but he's now sped up, and as our tyre wear kicks in, we're having to push to just try and keep up with him. So this is much of the frustration I've had with F1 Manager, I think, a little bit, is a lot of the races, you know, when I got a bit bored of it before on the end of last year, was because a lot of the races were very samey of, if I wanted to fight at the front, I had to over-push the drivers, overwear the tyres, and then you had to kind of gamble on you kind of outsmarting them with extra pit stops, whereas, you know, I would hope in next game there's actually scope to really rapidly improve your car and not have to try and play any games and actually play it quite realistically with, you know, actually taking care of the tyres. Because if I did just trundle around without, you know, pushing the tyres and overwearing them, I would just have to settle for being slower than Ferrari and Red Bull pretty much every race. You know, the races we've won so far this season have been because we've over-pushed them and done something clever on the strategy to try and out-negate that tyre, I guess you could say. So, yeah, that's a bit, kind of a bit of where my frustration has been with the game, is that it's very linear in terms of if you played it uber realistically, it is very samey, and the kind of good class moments we've had in the game so far have been because we've exploited different game mechanics to try and, you know, get one up on the AI, because they're, you know, especially Red Bull and Ferrari have been always usually faster than us. So now you can see we've got to lap 22. The rain is starting to fall. It's over 1 millimeter of rain, so very much intermediate time. So Gasly was far ahead, but we've double stacked and we've timed that to perfection, because as Gasly left, Alonso came to the pit box, so he basically lost very little time double stacking them, and that's a mistake Red Bull have made, because Perez, they've kept him out. So that's how we're going to re-jump Perez with Alonso. In the meanwhile, Gasly, he's just dominating this Hungarian Grand Prix. You know, whether it's pushing him or, you know, pushing the fuel or bringing it down, he is just doing everything I want him to do out there in front. 3.8, you know, he's going to build that gap and keep that gap to Alonso, to Verstappen slightly, and Alonso now is ahead of Perez. Perez had such a howler with staying out longer and not double stacking with Verstappen that he's now dropped behind Lando Norris in the McLaren, and it's sensational news for us in terms of Ferrari, P15 and 11. So we need to try and finish off this double podium, because this could be massive massive stuff for us in the championship. But we're now into the last kind of third phase of this Grand Prix. Lap 47 as planned. Alonso's coming in. Gasly stays out for a little bit longer, but we will bring him in eventually as well. So right now we've got a 1-3. Verstappen in the middle of us, but he's going to be stubborn and he's going to stay out probably because that's, basically just how the AI kind of behave on the game. So we're taking advantage of that by trying to go on fresh rubber sooner rather than later. So Gasly's in now 3 laps later, lap 50. So crucial next 20 laps because Verstappen takes the lead of the race. You've got Gasly who's going to be in P2, Alonso P3, so both on fresher inters. So this is the moment for us. Gasly's going to get P1 either way because there's no way Verstappen is going to have pace on those very worn inters. Like he's been on them for the whole race pretty much, since like lap 21 or whatever when the rain started to fall. So here we are then, lap 56 doesn't even take 10 laps. It takes 6 laps for us to catch up to Verstappen here. So this is when the game gets satisfying, when you can outsmart the AI like this, but it doesn't happen very often in dry conditions because they're just so bloody good at tyre wear and they don't really make mistakes like that on the dry tyre strategy, whereas in the wet they are a bit susceptible to that. And so on to the last lap of the Grand Prix. Yeah, the last lap of the Grand Prix. Gasly now's 12 seconds ahead, and there goes Fernando Alonso. We've been pushing him like a stabbed rat. 43% tyre wear on that second set. But we are going to pull off on our return to this game and the return to this series and this channel. We're going to pull off an unbelievable 1-2 at the Hungarian Grand Prix. It's going to be a sensational win for Gasly and Alonso. A recovery up to P2. Brilliant stuff. It's, I think maybe only our second ever 1-2, or maybe our first ever 1-2, at least in the Audi era of this series. And we've absolutely done Verstappen and the Red Bull cars today. And Ferrari only scored 2 points with Carlos Sainz. Leclerc out the points. So that's going to be a massive wallop to Ferrari. And as the race keeps going on, Sergio Perez, I've crossed the line, but the race is still going on for people. And Perez locks up and goes into the barrier. So it's even more of a howler for Red Bull. But it's a brilliant 1-2 for this team. I mean, can't ask for a much better return to the game and the series and the channel with a 1-2, really. It kind of makes you wonder, maybe, if I kept going, would I have not got bored if we had this success? I don't know. I think, to be honest, I think I was a bit more sharper with my strategy and actually wanting to really get the job done a bit more, having returned to the game, having had that break. So, yeah, great stuff there. 25-18. Obviously, Verstappen is so far ahead in the Drivers' Championship. Great to see Gasly now second place in the Drivers' Championship. And for us, we're now 330 points to Ferrari's 299. So, big gains there for us. We then have a mid-season board review, and it's all looking pretty damn high, so we get a little bonus of $1.5 million, but, we're trouncing the target of, what was it, 3 podiums, was it, I think? They set us a target by 2026. We've got 16, so, again, kind of showing that kind of season review kind of shows the game itself did not think, you would be fighting in this position at this point, but that's exactly what you want to do. Yes, you need a bit of realism, but at the end of the day, it is a video game. The races take so long. I don't want to be sat here playing like, 200 plus hours just to get to a championship fight. I think I want to say about 70 hours played on this game, and in terms of achievement levels, I don't think I've achieved a lot in the game, which has been my kind of biggest gripe with that. I've said it before in kind of, my desires for F1 Manager 23. I think they need to have shortened race options. I think they need to change the R&D a little bit to boost it more, and just for the AI and the player, just to have more volatility, basically, from season to season. And I think also the potentials of driver focus, slip of the tongue from F1 22, driver potential and growth needs to be a lot more rapid. And you also need to be able to sign top drivers when you won, when you're clearly winning races, because there's no way I'll be able to sign either of the Ferrari drivers, Red Bull drivers, or even Mercedes drivers anytime soon, because they're just not up for negotiation, which is a bit of a shame, because you think, obviously, come on, we got Audi now, we're in P2 in the championship, we've just got a 1-2, surely that would open the eyes to some of these drivers to be signing for our team in the future, but just no, it's not possible. But anyway, I digress. We move on then to the next Grand Prix at the Belgian GP. So this one, I had to bite the bullet and take a penalty here on Alonso's side of things, because his components were a bit too worn. I thought, you know, Spa, I maybe should have learned from last season. Spa in the game is not as good to overtake at as it is in real life, because that's why so many teams in real life take penalties at Spa. But I opted to take a penalty with Alonso here because we're getting quite worn on the engine side of things. I did also purchase a new part for Gasly, but I didn't actually bother using it in this weekend, so we don't actually have a penalty with Gasly, even though we spent some extra money on a new component. But that will come into play later on, so eventually both our drivers will have to take some penalties this season, just like others. But good news for us, Leclerc and Verstappen both taking penalties as well into Q3. Gasly only P6 in quali. He moves up to third place because of those penalties, but a bit concerning he was that slow in quali. Alonso down to P12 now with his penalties as we now get going for 5 red lights. But we've got an opportunity here again at Spa. We're racing Perez and Sainz. Theoretically, maybe easier targets to get with Pierre Gasly. So we're underway from P3 on the grid alongside a McLaren in the second row. We watch the Ferrari and Red Bull go side by side into turn 1, and the opportunity's there. We've just got to stick with these two with Gasly, and the opportunity hopefully will be there to try and battle for another race win here off the back of Hungary into Spa. With Alonso, he's going to have a longer day in the office. Both him and Verstappen, P11 and 12, they've got some work to do to try and get through the traffic, as well as Leclerc in P9. On lap 7, we're kind of still watching that same battle with Sainz and Perez. I'm just trying to keep up with Gasly. Doing quite well not to wear the tyres out too much with him, to be fair. 80%, not too bad. We have used a lot of fuel, though. We're minus 0.6, but that's the thing. I have to use that much fuel to keep up with these two. Like, it is just, otherwise there's just no way. So, you know, it is kind of a compromising sort of way to play this game, to keep up with the drivers you want to keep up with. We've then got multiple cars crashed apparently behind us. Alonso was kind of stuck with Verstappen, and I find out that the multiple cars included Alonso. So that's depressing. And it's not even our fault. It's going to be his old team, Alpine. One of them locks up and smashes into Alonso. No rear wing, and Fernando Alonso is out this Grand Prix. So, crash down to reality somewhat off the back of a 1-2 at Hungary. Alonso's out. No, not even anywhere remotely my fault. That was just the Alpine taking us out. But the safety car, ironically, does give us an opportunity here, because we come in for a set of hard tyres along with Sergio Perez. Sainz, for whatever reason, hasn't opted to come in. I think we're all on the medium tyres, so a bit peculiar choice, because myself and Perez stay in P2 and 3, but now we're on fresh hards instead of slightly worn out medium. So myself and him now can push and try and overtake Sainz, whilst his tyre wear just gets worse and worse in comparison to ourselves with a fresh set of tyres, and so we're gunning for it. Thankfully, also the safety car gave me the opportunity to save all that fuel we burned in the first, 7-8 laps basically. But again, we're left staring at Perez versus Sainz, and despite setting a purple lap time, we're not really in the realm of overtaking, so I opted to try and save this extra fuel I had and burn it a little bit later on lap 19. Now this stage, Sainz is facing enough tyre wear where Perez has overtaken him. He eventually comes in. So now it's myself and Perez who are going to have a massive advantage on the field ahead of us. Leclerc, he's now catapulted up to P3 because he did, I think, make use of the safety car pit stop. So he's jumped up to P3. So unfortunately now we do have both Ferraris maybe in play in this race. So, I kind of have to try and aim for the race win to try and outscore Ferrari, or at least break even with them. But it's going to be tough work because Perez, even though he's not as quick as Verstappen, he's still in a Red Bull. But here on lap 23, we use deploy. We're using the fuel, not the tyres though, so doing quite well to save tyres there. But we get past into P1. But then we are met with another massive crash in this race, multiple cars, and so it's another safety car opportunity to save fuel again and alter the tyre wears. This time round, not maybe worth coming in, but we'll see how everything is. But it's a similar incident to the one that Fernando Alonso had with Aston Martin and Williams, but we do actually come in because I think, you know what, actually I can come out in P4. So we pit on for a set of medium tyres now. And we have a very weird, peculiar pit lane exit where we glitch through the pit wall. I was meant to come out behind Ricciardo, but we've somehow come out ahead of Sainz and Ricciardo. I think it was a little bit to do with the glitched pit lane exit. But either way, again, we've made use of a free pit stop under the safety car. We've now re-overtaken Perez on fresh medium tyres whilst he's on worn hards. Sainz is on worn hards from the first pit stop he made. So, looking good. But then a third crash happens. At this stage, we're about nearly 4 seconds out of Perez. So, I didn't actually want this safety car to come out. But it's because Sergio Perez, he's crashed and he's glitched into the wall. He's had such a hard crash that he's been punted into the shadow realm here. Like we did at Mexico last season, if you remember. And it's because of a crash with Carlos Sainz. Sainz locks up. Big impact. And that sends Perez, look at the sparks. That sent Perez into the pit wall. Not even that wall near to him. So that was a stupendous crash. Well, I didn't actually want that third safety car, like I said, because now look at that. Verstappen and Leclerc, they're right behind me. We've got 2 laps to go in this Grand Prix. Decent amount of tyre, 56%, not too bad. Loads of fuel to push on, so I was feeling very confident until this. This pissed me off. Gasly runs wide, hits the gravel trap, gets stuck in the gravel trap, and all of a sudden, we've gone from maybe probably winning a race to now out the points. So this pissed me off. This is part of the reason why I kind of got bored and annoyed with the game, because it's still happening and it probably will happen for the rest of the season. These moments where the AI just locks up or has, drives wide. He had 56% tyre. Like, the tyre was not struggling. Yes, I was on attack, but 56 is not bad. Loads of fuel. So we would have won that race if it wasn't for that mistake. But in the end, no points for Gasly, no points for Alonso, 18 points for Leclerc, no points for Sainz. So we still lead Ferrari, but Ferrari gain a whole 18 clean points on us. And Verstappen has another win to his tally for this season. So, yeah, kind of polar opposite episode. Absolute euphoria of a 1-2 at Hungary. Double no points at Spa. And a second last lap mistake that got us away from the win. So yeah, I can't lie. I was very angry at the end of that race. But we move on. We move. It happens. We're ahead of Ferrari, though, still at the end of this episode. So can't complain. But we've got some now manufacturing to do for parts there. But that kind of sums up F1 Manager. It is a little bit kind of random as well sometimes. The luck you get on this game with, you know, stunning race wins and 1-2s and strategies versus just dumb luck of a random driver going wide and then getting stuck in a gravel trap rather than just, you know, losing a couple of seconds. But hey ho, that's how it goes. But guys, if you have enjoyed the return of F1 Manager on the channel, then be sure to let me know with a like. Let me know in the comments below if you like the return of this series. And if you are new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. And I'll catch you guys next time. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.